the summer vacation or the holidays. You know, now that the election is over, things might be settling down just a little bit. Ironically, a lot of our state institutions, government, politicians, public servants, quite a few of them take this time for vacation. I believe judiciary, parliament as well, takes time off at around this time. But we did just have an election, and we are at a transition point. Now, before I go through the topics on the daily review, I did want to acknowledge we just had local government election, and it didn't even take a couple of days before we had reports of flooding, this time in South Trinidad. There's one news report on the situation where one family, not only did they have to deal with the passing of a relative on Monday, but they also, well, had significant damages and suffered significant losses to their personal property. And I do just want to reiterate the point and maybe highlight the irony, the fact that at the end of the day, was flooding a topic at the forefront of the national campaigns with regards to the local government election. And you might say, yes, my councillor, or yes, this member of my party, that member of my party at this meeting, that's all well and good. But the political leaders of the parties involved, for the most part, as well as senior members, whether long-standing within the last couple of years or now returning, tended to focus on things that weren't flooding and drainage and local infrastructure and local roadworks. Roadworks that get, in my opinion, more lip service or mention. Maybe it wasn't as bad or as limited as lip service. Roadworks did get more mention by the senior people who weren't actually up for elections, but were throwing their weight in the campaigns in order to help their party win, and well, the results are what they are. And to get into that, let's kick off the daily review. So yesterday a viewer did caution Karen and I, saying, well, we don't have all the results because there are recounts. And I did mention I don't expect much to change. And for the most part, nothing much has changed. An interesting tidbit, one of the headlines basically says PNM wins 8 of 9 recounts. Well, that's because they were recounts of areas that they technically already won on Monday night, based on the initial count. So the recount just confirmed what was already there. Yes, a vote here was found, a vote there was found, a couple of votes here, a couple of votes there. Not enough for the most part to change everything, except I believe I believe this is because of the recounts. I'm under that impression. In Laguna, Lengua, Indian Walk, the recount is reported to continue today, so I assume they want to be sure that the count is accurate before the final determination is that it's a tie. I am not familiar with local government elections enough to know what will happen in this case. I am not entirely sure if this will change the corporation of that area. So I'm under the impression that it should not. Some of the more hotly contested corporations where the recounts would clearly have made a big difference, that more or less they have been confirmed. So, which I'll get more into the issue of claims made against the EBC or accusations made against the EBC. I would say right now, I have not necessarily seen enough to say, oh, well, the EBC is clearly acting in bad faith and is acting with bias, is acting in favor of one party or the other. Whenever the EBC says we're adding more seats to whatever, the THA, they went from 12 to 15. What was the talk? The talk was, well, it looks as though there's favor of the PNM in this situation. They're doing it for the PNM. Well, in the last THA election, the PNM more or less did not really win those seats. PNM only won 1 seat in total. So the new additions, and maybe one could argue it was a phenomenon of that election that it didn't matter what you tried to do, the voters were going to vote for who they were going to vote. But in the local government election, also the additional seats, they went to the UNC. So we have the recounts. I am willing to abide by them because I don't have enough to say that there's something fishy going on there. So hopefully that will put an end to the doubt. To be fair though, the UNC was in their right to ask for the recount, and in some of those critical and close races, by all means. But now that it's over, let's accept the results for the most part and move on. In the case of the tie, that is not settled yet by the EBC's own utterances, so we will continue to look at that and see how that unfolds. Now, while moving on to the next story, while local government elections have, of course, dominated, well, I'm hesitant to say the national media. It's dominated the Trinidad media. But it was still of, to some extent, national importance because I really do believe everybody, including Tobago, including parts of Trinidad, which are strongholds that will never change, are looking at these results to see what happens in the general. And of course, when the general comes in, now Tobago comes back into play. And I find the timing interesting of what's been going on in Tobago because all of a sudden, there's quite a lot of controversial things, topics coming out of Tobago. The timing I find interesting. I don't necessarily think it's a grand conspiracy by anybody because they seem to be coming from multiple sides and angles and speakers who are not necessarily associated with each other, and multiple situations, some of which we've been waiting for the comments. I don't know if it's just that everybody decided that, well, now the election's over, it's a time to talk about these things because there's space in the news cycle, or, and I'm sure somebody's going to say, well, it can't be a coincidence. All of this talk happening at the same time. Grand conspiracy. Grand conspiracies that require secrecy and coordination and planning. Have you seen the capacity of the politicians of this country to think that they're going to be able to have grand coordination and planning and secrecy? Especially, like I said, the individuals involved, they're not necessarily associated with each other. So it's a couple of things. One of the interesting ones that I definitely want to talk about is the fact that one certain gentleman, Akil Abdullah, the whistleblower, who was videotaped without his knowledge and had the tape presented within a legislative body, presumably against his will, has now come out to say that he was coerced. He is reported to have said, there is a video recording purported to be of Abdullah alleging that he was forced to confess to bribery and conspiracy, which has made the wrongs on social media. And it's reported that he said on this recording, I did tell them some stuff, but other stuff they prompted me to say, like the things that were actually not true. I never met with the Prime Minister. They prompted me to say those things. When I was there, I was surprised that they wanted me to say those things. Now, first of all, when everything came out in the THA, when Farley made his presentation, which potentially, yes, for PNM supporters might have been an improper procedure. I don't even know if anything could come of that or what could become of that. When Farley made that presentation, the question was why Mr. Abdullah wanted to speak to Farley, and based on the recordings had a lot to say to Farley, but all of a sudden, he didn't want to say anything to the rest of the nation. He didn't want to say anything publicly. One could say, well, he was fearing for his safety, but there's recordings of him released in the public sphere of him saying the things. Him repeating it, I don't think would put him in any more danger, or at least potentially, right? Except if he was going to try to somehow retract or backtrack from the positions that he is reported or that we have seen in the video. I thought once he did not want to speak publicly that he was going to try to do that. That was obvious to me. It's not a great prognostication or a great, it's not any sort of intelligent thinking to come to that conclusion. He doesn't want to speak, so he's trying to get time to figure out what he's going to say because he wants to deny, or he doesn't want to be involved. Because even if everything he said was true, he didn't come out publicly to say it. So he's going to try to do something to cover himself, because so far he has done nothing to suggest that he wants to be publicly involved in this situation. He just went to Farley to talk to Farley. The thing is, he didn't know that they were recording him. So the question now is, they prompted him to say things. Did he think it was safe to say these things? Did he think that, well, I'll just tell them what they want to hear because it doesn't matter anyway, I'm just telling Farley this privately? And if that's the case, why? And even if we don't consider the fact that, okay, there was prompting involved, regardless of if he was coerced to say what he said or decided to say what he said of his own volition, why? Why say it at all? And that's the thing that bothers me. It's why I figured he was going to try to distance himself from Farley's claims and from Farley's accusations to the Prime Minister. But I really didn't know how he was going to do it, because at the end of the day, he could claim coercion, but it's sort of difficult to prove. Now, the flip side is we don't know the full extent of the conversation. We don't know who else might have been there. We don't know what else might have been said if there were any other meetings. On the other hand, the Chief Secretary presents evidence from someone who he was not able to ascertain if the person would have been willing to back up his claims. Again, it's on video, but edited video is not necessarily going to be the be-all and end-all. I do, however, remember, I think the Chief Secretary did ask Mr. Abdullah something about if he's here of his own free will. That doesn't necessarily cover everything that was said. Yes, I'm here of my own free will. I came to you. Then you could potentially be prompting me or asking me or pulling for more information. Personally, I suspect, and I am not 100% sure about this, but I suspect that the Chief Secretary might have been taken for a ride. I don't necessarily know why. Perhaps he's trying to ingratiate himself with the Chief Secretary. Based on the fact that he says that some of the things that they prompted me to say were not actually true, it causes me to think that it might be even more likely when you're willing to say things by your own admission that aren't actually true based off of prompting. Because at the end of the day, if you said you spoke to the Prime Minister, it doesn't matter how much I prompt you. Did you speak to the Prime Minister? Your response is still on you. So it'll be interesting to see what comes of this. I do think this puts a big hole of uncertainty into Farley's claims. There's more coming out of Tobago. The PNM Tobago Council leader, he has made claims that THA workers have been victimized. The irony of which is that What gives his claims credence is the fact that, look, the person in power controls the hiring and firing of things like CPEP and ERP, et cetera, and we have had reports, I believe the THA has plans to expand its expenditure on those things, and they're the ones in power. So if we believe the PNM is keeping those hired in certain programs and accessing certain grants, holding that over people's heads, it's not unreasonable to think that it can be, not necessarily is, it can be done within the THA, and it's not going to be the Tobago Council or the minority leader who's going to be doing these things. Of course, Ansel Dennis is Fally Augustine's political opponent, so, and I'll touch on this topic later on, but claims being made and then nothing comes out of it, it's getting tiresome. But more importantly, it's also getting tiresome how the country either responds with just believing it 100% or just ignoring it 100%, as opposed to demanding a resolution to these things so that false claims can't just be thrown out there. And of course, there's also the fact that a political analyst, I believe, pointed out that the THA's quest for autonomy, as well as just its own growth economically, socially, etc., can be affected. Well, in my opinion, autonomy. In the analyst's opinion, growth of Tobago can be affected negatively by all of the accusations being thrown out there by the Tobago's People Party, specifically the Chief Secretary, their interim political leader, about how they're being used against Tobago and against Tobagonians. Don't mind the fact that what might have prompted Fally's annoyance at licensing is the fact that his own family member was involved. Now, here's the thing, and to wrap this part of the show up, I think it's interesting that Fally has been reported to have said, well, or has an allegation that the Commissioner of Police is in cahoots with the government to undermine the THA. I don't think that the Chief Secretary realizes that when he has gone on the record to say that the Tobago division of the TTPS needs to consult with him, the elected official who has no place in the police's chain of command, as the police is a body that is independent of political control, that is to say elected officials are not supposed to control them. When he wants the Tobago division to report to him, then it's a hard sell, at least for me, for him then to say, well, look, they're in cahoots. The Prime Minister controls the police and he's using them against us. It might be true. It's just that you wanting the police to report to you and you wanting to have sign off on what the police does in Tobago is on principle kind of the same thing. So while it doesn't disprove your claims or accusations against the commissioner, but what it does point out is, yet again, you're willing to do the very thing that you're complaining about. It might not be on the same scale, but once you cross the line, right, stealing $1, stealing $10, stealing $100, stealing $1,000, stealing $1 million, they're all theft. You might not get the same punishment, but at some point, it's all wrong as a basic principle. So you can't tell the Tobago division, hey, you gotta run things by me. You gotta tell me. No, they don't. No, they don't. They have that independence. That independence you want the commissioner to exercise and not take potential political instructions from the Prime Minister, potentially, allegedly. Well, you also have to abide by that principle and let them do their job. If you have evidence, take it to the police. Oh, the irony of that statement. Take it to the relevant bodies like the Professional Standards Bureau and the Police Complaints Authority. or even put the evidence, well, let me not say that. Folks, let's take a break. When we come back, there's a little bit more on this general topic where accusations are thrown out and not much really comes out of it. And like I said, I'm getting fed up of it. Stay tuned to Talking Point. We'll be right back.
We exposed 5 strangers to KFC's delicious chicken to see if any time could be KFC time. And at the first bite, the party began. We repeated the experiment during the day, during business hours, on weekends, with sunshine, with rain. And it's confirmed. KFC's flavor makes anytime KFC time. KFC, it's finger licking good.
Let the home store turn your house into a home you love. Get everything you need to give your home that special look and feel. We offer household items, lawn and garden, paint center, hardware, plumbing, lighting and electrical, toys and storage solutions. 5 convenient locations: 6th Avenue Barataria, The Falls at West Mall, Pennywise Plaza Shoguanas, C3 Center Branch and C3 San Fernando. Check out our Facebook page for more information and come visit us today. The Home Store. Turn your house into a home you love. FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
We're back on WSN, your Content Capital Talking Point. Sean Michael Small here, and I was speaking about, there were a couple of things in the Daily Review where I brought up the whole thing that claims are made publicly, accusations, rumors, and they seem important. Claims of criminality, allegations of criminal conduct and misbehavior, and they go nowhere. Nothing comes of these claims. And these are serious things about corruption, usually, or about blackmail, as we had in one instance with the Chief Secretary. Now, to be fair to the Chief Secretary, or at least on the surface level, the situation with the recording of the THA members speaking about utilizing public jobs in order to remunerate political campaigning for their, at the time, the PDP. That's looked into by the police. Granted, there is one big piece of evidence out there in the public sphere that cannot be ignored, and if it were to be ignored, one would hope the public would take umbrage with that. But the Chief Secretary did present WhatsApp messages, or the images of what looked like WhatsApp messages publicly, of messages he received that said basically that he was being blackmailed over this situation, that the recordings were being used in that manner in order to try to get him to pay off contracts, whether your opinion is that the contracts are valid or that they were political favors or sort of a soft corruption, that they were being used to blackmail him to get the money moving. Money that arguably the THA does not have, to be fair to the THA. Were those accusations looked into? Because it's a double-edged sword, right? Yes, we could say politicians make these claims all the time. And, you know, it's going to be irresponsible of them to make these claims. But the flip side is, shouldn't we take accusations seriously and then have the police check into them, and then the public would at least have a better chance of knowing, hey, where there's smoke, there's fire, or there's not really much to see here. We're not always going to get definitive conclusions, but we would at least have a better chance, the police, assuming that nothing goes wrong with the investigative arm on cases like these, because that and all, there is questions, uncertainty, or maybe a lack of confidence in the capacity of the Anti-Corruption Bureau and whatever other relevant agency, their capacity to investigate white-collar crime and political corruption. But at least let's you know, do some of the basics. Do some of the basics, right? Did the police look into this? Did they find that there was nothing there? Did they not look into it? Did they have reasons that would be acceptable for not looking into it? These things should be communicated to us. And at the very least, if you're not going to look into it, what's your reason? Why you can't say it? These things are important if we want to have a transparent society. These things are important because when left alone, the public will speculate. And I've told politicians time and time again on this show, when you don't like the speculation, don't complain, because not only do you not speak about the topic in whatever capacity you have on your own initiative, you also refuse at times to answer questions on certain topics. And this goes across the board, across the board. So the thing is, when they throw accusations out there into the public sphere, they're banking on the speculation. They want the speculation. When the EBC is brought up, oh, we have anomalies in the election, anomalies in the count, anomalies here, anomalies there, anomalies everywhere. Concrete, substantial claims are not necessarily going to be made. And it's left for you now to speculate. You fill in the blanks. It's similar to when a movie doesn't show the monster. Because it's scarier, you are left to imagine this scary monster, creature yourself. And it'll always be scarier in your own mind than what is actually shown. And I wouldn't doubt, speculation of mine, all of these accusations and claims will always be scarier in our own minds than what is actually there that can be proven, at least without further investigation. So on one hand, politicians know. They take advantage of it. Which is ironic when they complain when it works against them. And this is why we need a more robust investigative body, a more robust criminal justice system, because looking into things, finding evidence of things, finding evidence that things did not happen, clearing charges, all of these things help society, improve transparency, improve, in theory, accountability, and improve public trust and confidence. Accusations that go nowhere erode public trust and confidence. The irresponsible behavior from politicians, because let's face it, not everybody is going to look at it as a negative. All the diehards will say, well, yeah, but my people can't do no wrong. And them people always doing wrong all the time, 24/7. The issue is, whatever tactic you use today can be used against you tomorrow. The type of claims used today can be used against you tomorrow. The Chief Secretary tried to do a repeat of Emailgate when Dr. Rowley, as leader of the opposition, took it as a motion to Parliament. He didn't necessarily execute it in quite the same way. It wasn't necessarily quite as successful. But the point is, he followed the tactic of his political opponent. The example that was set, the precedent that was set. It can be used against you. Why not? All of the tricks with regards to how you utilize public resources and how you manage it and who you deny it to can be used against you once you're not in office. It's arrogance to assume that you will always be in office. And then furthermore, we already have issues with trusting our independent institutions. Keaton and I and others on this show question the independence of the police. The irony of my previous segment notwithstanding and the position I took there. But to some extent, we can't be 100% cynical all the time and buy into the rumors and just assume, oh, rumors, so that it must be true, so it must be bad. I always say the standard is innocent until proven guilty. And as I mentioned earlier on the show, I have not necessarily seen anything out of the EBC to say, oh, the EBC is just one big giant cesspool of corruption and filth and bias. No, I haven't seen that. I mean, at the end of the day, the proof is in the fact that it's not as though we have one political party in the last 20 years. Well, okay, it happened in Tobago. But Tobago was in a transition. They didn't even have a proper opposition party in the middle of that. But in general election, it's not as though we've had the last 20 to 30 years, one political party winning and the other party not even coming close. Right? We could see reasons for why the elections unfold the way they do. We could see the mistakes of the politicians in their election campaign and their political campaign and their political career or the terms, their policy decisions, etc., etc. That's why we had that PNM term into the coalition term, back into a PNM term, and to some extent COVID and the management of COVID propped up the perception of the government. To what degree, leave that for another time. So I'll reiterate again. These things where politicians throw out claims that are unsubstantiated, they themselves don't necessarily take it to the authorities. They complain when the authorities don't investigate, but they don't actually make a report, they don't actually go on the record, they want to use legislative privileges, whether it's the THA or the Parliament, to shield their utterances, right? When they speak publicly outside of that forum, it's with a lot less specifics. They leave it for us to speculate about all the bad things that sound scary in our minds. We don't necessarily know what the truth is. The truth usually is a bit more complicated and nuanced than what we suspect it to be. Yes, politicians need to be more responsible and do this less, but also the institutions to investigate these things needs to be stronger, because if and when we catch politicians exaggerating or making things up or acting in bad faith and throwing out irresponsible accusations out there should be consequences. And right now, the way how the game is played, they are immune because we have very little way to determine how true or false these accusations are. The situation in Tobago is a unique one that may or may not be due to the Chief Secretary's rookie behavior. And he might have overextended himself with the whistleblower who is now recanting. But we can't bank on situations to be like that. And to be fair to the Chief Secretary, if we had a proper investigative body, they could look into the matter and determine the truth. And if the truth is on his side, he would be clear.
Storage Solutions, 5 convenient locations, 6th Avenue. Storage Solutions, 5 convenient locations, 6th Avenue Barataria, The Falls at Westmore, Pennywise Plaza Shoguanas, C3 Center Branch and C3 San Fernando. Check out our Facebook page for more information and come visit us today. The Home Store. Turn your house into a home you love. FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
On the next episode of Nicole Larson Live, Living in Victory Every Day.
One of the first tips is putting God in the midst of it, and He's going to direct you. Another tip would be making sure that your business is in line legally.
Didn't you have a waka?
Yes, I used to borrow a waka.
You used to borrow a waka. And then you said to him, why don't you purchase? Or she purchased a waka for you.
Yes.
Listen to me. Look now, man.
Things are changing around us at the drop of a hat. And technology continues to challenge us. But not only is technology challenging us, but the changes in the world, in our global environment, is also challenging us in a significant way.
Like a tree, you have survived every kind of harsh weather. To believe that you can flourish again after a major catastrophe may be difficult. But by the grace of God, you will flourish again like a palm tree.
An encore of Nicole Larson Live, Living in Victory Every Day. Every Sunday at 8 p.m. and Wednesday at 4:30 p.m. on WESN.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And I am joined by our TTPS Media Ambassador, the original Acting ASP Ashraf Ali. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm quite fine. I'm quite fine. You, on the other hand, of course, potentially in the hot seat this morning. Although you won't be able to stay for calls, so he escapes yet again, viewers, yet again. But there is some important things that you're here to talk to us about, because we were speaking about the topic just before we came back on air. And, you were lamenting on the fact that the public seems to be not heeding the warnings and advice of the TTPS and, well, taking out large sums of cash from the bank. and putting themselves in a vulnerable position. That's something you're trying to tell the public, please do not do that. So first of all, I do just want to set the record straight. What exactly would you say is a large sum of cash? Because it might be lower than some people think.
Right, so good morning to our viewers. Yes, again, and we continue to reiterate this issue. Now, large sums of cash, I would say, from the context of what we are seeing, is under $100,000, and that person's were going to take out cash, right? The possibilities, I don't know what their purpose would have been.
So under 100,000 or well, not over 100,000.
No, yeah. Well, from our records, it falls within under $100,000. But then again, it don't have to be that. Sometimes you go, persons take out of 40,000, 50,000. Some will take out $10,000. The issue is that one person take out large sums of cash, and when we say large sums of cash, within that parameter we're looking at.
Yeah.
Right. They need to be very cautious when they go to the banks. Be self-aware of your surroundings, because we had several reports where persons would have gone to the bank, take out some cash, some of them over $40,000, $50,000 when we get, and persons would have followed those individuals all the way to their business spaces, sometimes into the homes, and the persons were robbed. Some persons would have been robbed as soon as they left the banking institutions, a short distance away, they were robbed.
Yeah.
So we keep on reinforcing that your personal safety is important. That if you know you have to go to the banks and whatever business transactions that you are doing and you have to be involved in taking out cash, ensure that you do some safety requirements. You know, do not do it on a regular basis, because persons may do it from a banking, a business person, so they may go and deposit money at the same time as well as leaving the bank. So this is not about just coming from the bank. We're talking about going to the bank with large cash to make deposits at the same time. So it works both ways.
Would you say that it would be a good idea to not travel or transport large amounts of cash, whether to the bank to deposit or from the bank to utilize in your business? To not do those sorts of trips on a regular schedule?
Yes, and I agree with you. So we are asking, and if you have to, fluctuate your times, fluctuate your days. Don't be having a regular schedule that persons may be observing, because at the end of the day, we realize that persons are actually doing some surveillance on these. They may have persons at the banks, sitting down in the banks, waiting to see persons coming out with cash. No, you know, sometimes when they go to the bank, persons will get their cash in their envelope and they walk on the commentary door with a big thick envelope. No exiting, because in your mind you feel that I'm going to my vehicle, I'm not walking with it. But somebody may have been watching and observing what is taking place. So losing the cash is okay in some contexts. Losing your life is another aspect of it. So the risk associated with this, you may lose the cash, you may put up a fight, you may get injured in the situation, or you can lose your life.
Or they might literally just be, say, a misunderstanding. The robber might think you're tense and looking to have a confrontation and utilize violence on the base of that.
And even in a banking situation, in the banking environment, we had conversations with persons from the banking sector already about the security measures that we could implement. And there are in fact some measures in the bank that if you know you have to take out this or make a deposit of that nature, communicate with the managers. They will carry out a room that
ask to see a manager or supervisor.
That you have a concern with over the counter doing these type of transactions.
But my concern is that no matter what security measures are put in place, at some point they could see you. They could see, okay, that person looks like somebody who has large amounts of cash. And they don't necessarily have to take it the first time. They might observe the bank for a few days and then maybe, make note of what vehicle that you regularly drive. So they don't have to take you at the bank as you said, it could also be at the house.
Exactly.
Which will be far away from whatever security the bank might have, or if police is posted in the bank parking lot, they can't follow everybody home.
And then you may consider based on your number of transactions, the type of transactions you will do, may consider some additional security arrangements to carry your cash in the bank, cash in night safe deposits, or even utilize the systems of using a specialized company to assist in cash transactions.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's something that you have to look at it from a business perspective. If you're going business people doing these type of transactions, and understand you have to make yourself a hard target. Harden your environment to reduce the opportunity for these persons to commit a crime.
I know that you can't necessarily speak for the official position, but generally speaking, would you think that would be better? Is this now just reason to try to go as cashless as possible? I know that some people, they don't trust the bank, they don't like the fact that there might be fees tacked on their Links card or whatever card. Would cashless be one of the best ways as much as possible to avoid this?
It's an opportunity or option for person to utilize. Now, using that avenue now brings us to the issue of online. So you're now going to use cashless. So then we also have the issue of scammers and where you can get your credit card and scanned, stolen persons. So you have that risk at the same time. So you have to balance the risk with respect to how you want to use a transaction. But then we also have the issue of online transactions where you go on Facebook and other areas. Other areas on Facebook where persons are offering for sale items.
Is it that because of the economic situation, there are more people looking to sell off? Because I know I've had some of my friends, they're selling some of their books or their clothes, that in good condition, but they're not necessarily like salespeople. Is it that there are a lot more just members of the general public looking to like get a little bit of extra cash and sell things, and now the question is it's easier to hide in the shuffle of who is legit and who's not?
I would not say that a lot of persons want to sell off a lot of things, but post the pandemic era, the COVID would have highlighted the use of technology, the amount of online platforms and opportunities for person to use online platforms to do a lot of transaction and business. It is with us, and it has become much more effective and efficient for a lot of persons to utilize that. But the risk factors are also there, and we haven't understood how serious the risk factors are. So only recently we would have had persons coming from another location from the east coming into Port of Spain in one of the areas which is not or should not have been going to a particular street in Port of Spain to view a vehicle, right? And it is about less than 100 yards away from the Besson Street Police Station, and we continue to tell the public that if you know you are going to do this type of transaction, especially if you're going to view a vehicle or anything like that, let the person who is interested in selling the vehicle, right, bring the vehicle to the nearest police station, inform the police that I am here to view this vehicle, right? And if that person does not want to come to then there's a red flag. I am saying those are red flags that you have to look at. If it's a legitimate transaction, do you have anything to hide? So if I am going to sell an item and the person, the buyer is feeling uncomfortable interacting with me because they have never met me before, it's only online, and they ask me to come to a police station, I have a legitimate business to conduct, and I will be willing to go there.
Is most of the fraud that you see from online transactions similar to this, where the transaction is set up online, but the money is going to be transferred, the goods and money is going to be transferred physically at a specific location? So we don't necessarily have online electronic transaction fraud, at least not to scale in TNT.
No, it's not that. We are speaking about the online engagement and then the physical transaction for that goods and services. And this is where we have this is where we continue to get the challenges, right? Persons would walk with money to buy the vehicle, purchase a vehicle or some other item, and when they reach there, they are robbed. Sometimes with the vehicle that they came with, that they rob the vehicle, they rob the personal items together with the cash that they intended to purchase the items with. So these are some of the things that we have to be careful with. So it's not about supplier and the buyers at the same time. So even persons who are selling items need to be very cautious of the person who is coming to purchase. Because if they come in to purchase, I have no problem. They should not have a problem going to the nearest police station, right? Use the opportunity that the police is asking you all to do. Like we continue to say, it is better for us to facilitate you having a transaction to investigate a crime.
Now, some people might not have the best interaction with the police. Usually, it's not necessarily going to be serious, my co-host's experience notwithstanding. The recent one I had was the incident when my friend's vehicle got hit, his parked vehicle got hit. I actually called you for advice. We went to the police station, and his report was made, but it seemed as though the officers weren't like totally enthused to have to deal with the situation, because it was a Saturday night. I don't know if members of the public run into situations like that where they're not necessarily feeling confident in the feedback they're getting from a certain police officer. Could it be that they could look into maybe a different police station?
It matters not which police station you go to. You're not going to make a report per se. You are just utilizing the physical structure where our police station is located.
Right.
Right? And you just have to go inside and say, officer, good night, sir, ma'am, I am here to do a transaction. I am just outside doing the transaction. Right? You're not here to make a report.
Yeah.
Right? And an officer, I am sure an officer will be comfortable enough just to view what you are doing outside there because a legitimate transaction, right? They don't have to get involved in your personal transaction, but the mere fact that they're utilizing the space, right, of a police station, just in front of a police station.
In front.
You don't necessarily have to go into the compound of the police station. Just in front of the police station, on the street next to the police station, is good enough for to show that, to determine whether or not the person who is willing to do transaction, whether it's a legitimate transaction or otherwise. Right. Because if that person has ulterior motives, they would not want to come to a police station.
Well, some criminals might be so brazen, but there have been reports every now and then of crimes of opportunity within the proximity. Not often, but within the opportunity.
However, the risk and the opportunities will be minimized from that context. So as much as the public want to engage in transaction, I want to urge the public at this point in time, use the avenues that we are giving you. Use the police station, go to the police station and do these type of transactions. Minimize the risk associated with these type of transactions, please. It is easier for us to facilitate you all in doing a transaction as opposed to investigating a crime.
The irony, of course, is people involved, well, the buyers anyway involved in this sort of transaction, they would need cash, right? One would assume, not necessarily doing online bank transfers in a situation like this, are also at risk of having to withdraw the cash. So from my position, folks, I would go so far as to say perhaps you should reconsider even looking to enter into a venture like this. And the seller as well. You might receive the cash and now you have to figure out a place to deposit the cash and you will be vulnerable. So consider what it is you're doing, because those transactions, they're not going to be, especially when it's a car, it's not going to be small. But ASP, we have to break for news, so I want to thank you for coming. You won't be able to stay for phone calls. It's a shame we haven't had you for a while. I'm sure the viewers miss you. But folks, you have to break for news on your own return. We will open up the phone lines so you can tell me all of the ways that I was wrong for the morning, as well as give your support to the TTPS. I say that with no irony. Stay tuned to Talking Points at WSN. We'll be right back.
Here is your WESN News on the Hour. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Digger Martin man held with rifle and ammo. 2 shot dead in carnage. 1.6 million in flavored marijuana seized at the port of entry. Regionally, U.S. resident died after his motor vehicle collided with an ambulance in Jamaica. Now for the details. A Digger Martin man was arrested and a high-powered rifle and a quantity of ammunition seized by officers of the Western Division during an anti-crime exercise conducted in the district last night. The exercise, conducted between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. on Tuesday, 15th August 2023, was sanctioned by ACP Mirage, coordinated by Superintendent Henry and ASP Guyan, and spearheaded by Inspector Grant and Sergeant Carmona. During the exercise, officers acting on information proceeded to Bridge Road, Digger Martin, where they observed a male suspect holding a long black metal object resembling a firearm. The suspect is said to have looked in the direction of the officers before running off. He was held a short distance away and one AR-15 rifle loaded with a magazine containing 25 rounds of 5.56 ammunition. The 20-year-old suspect of the area was arrested in connection with the find. Investigations are ongoing. 2 men lost their lives following a shooting in the Carnage area on Tuesday night, less than a day after 2 other men were killed in the same area. According to police reports, residents of Scorpion Alley, Carnage, heard gunshots at around 9 p.m. When the smoke cleared, they found Joshua George bleeding on the floor of the kitchen in his home, while another man, Israel Latrina, was found on the floor of the bathroom in the same house. Crime scene investigators found 97 spent shells and a live round of 5.56 ammunition. Hybrid marijuana worth approximately $1.6 million was seized by officers of the Specialist Unit within the Ministry of National Security and the Customs and Excise Division at a warehouse in the Point Leases district yesterday. The drugs, which originated from Canada, have a total weight of 6.48 kilograms. The seizure is a result of intelligence-based profiling in keeping with the mandate of the unit with respect to border management and protection. Through diligent police work, officers identified a package being imported into Trinidad from Canada and coordinated an operation with officials of the Customs and Excise Division. The exercise, which was conducted on Tuesday, 15th August 2023, resulted in the seizure of a package which contained 2 speaker boxes. Checks of the boxes resulted in a quantity of marijuana with the markings of different flavors. Investigations are ongoing into this matter with the assistance of Canadian authorities, while the Special Investigations Unit and Customs will continue to pursue local lines of inquiry with a view to dismantling the importation of illicit drugs and other contraband over our borders. Regionally, 32-year-old United States resident died after his motor vehicle collided with an ambulance on Queens Road, Discovery Bay in St. Anne on Tuesday. He has been identified as Jarrell Donato of Dallas, Texas. Reports from the Discovery Bay police are that about 5:15 p.m., Donato was driving his Mazda Demio motorcar from the direction of Montego Bay, St. James. On reaching a section of the roadway, he collided with an ambulance that was traveling the opposite direction. Well, that's news to the hour on WESN. I am Sira Ali. Thanks for watching.
Let the home store turn your house into a home you love. Get everything you need to give your home that special look and feel. We offer household items, lawn and garden, paint center, hardware, plumbing, lighting and electrical, toys and storage solutions. 5 convenient locations: 6th Avenue Barataria, The Falls at West Mall, Pennywise Plaza Shoguanas, C3 Center Branch and C3 San Fernando. Check out our Facebook page for more information and come visit us today. The Home Store. Turn your house into a home you love.
Welcome back, folks, to Talk About here at WSN, your content capital, only station in the nation broadcasting in HD, WESN, television with a difference. Believe that, because you don't know what you got till it's gone, folks. So let's celebrate it while we're still here. And you can keep us here. Now, phone lines, let's open them. Want to hear from you, the viewer. Of course, our media ambassador, he pointed out a situation, one that is an ongoing issue, one that is a little bit more recent. Regardless, it's still something that needs to be disseminated through the public. If you have any stories with regards to that, or even any anecdotes that you might think is useful for your fellow citizens to hear, please feel free to call in. Also, it might seem that I'm a little bit harsh on Tobago. That's because I find the whole situation is getting a bit over the top and ridiculous. To be fair, we haven't necessarily had anything substantial in recent days, except, of course, the whistleblower attempting to recant testimony that he didn't know that he was going to be giving. That and all is a bit over the top. If you want to talk about that, that's fine. And local government elections, we're still dealing with the fallout of the results, potentially, because I still think that if you really were to ask anybody that supported anybody in these local government elections, I don't necessarily see them as a win, as something that we could say, yes, we did it. Did what? It more or less just stayed the same. More or less. But we have our first caller for the morning, San Fernando on the line. Good morning, San Fernando. You're on the air.
Good morning, Sean. How are you doing?
I'm going all right. I'm going all right.
You know, two things. First, I come in with your coverage on the Tuesday after the election.
Yes.
That long marathon session you all had.
Yes.
I must say I was so disappointed that you and Peter had all those people on. And to my dismay, you all didn't let us, who are your supporters, get a word in. 20 minutes in to have for us to express our views. I must say I was disappointed there, but it happened already. Please take that with a pinch of salt. My second thing is your talk about Tobago. You know what is so? I listened to that same that gentleman's voice note or whatever it was,
yes,
what the recording that he had, and then I looked at the TH's the Chief Secretary putting out a press release, and in the Chief Secretary's press release, he said that several times Mr. Abdullah tried to come to his office without an appointment. And he did, and they did not give an appointment. However, he did make arrangements after to meet him at the Chief Secretary's residence. I am saying, Fali Augustine really taking us for fools, you know. Really trying to take us for fools.
Well, go ahead, Carl.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. You finish what you said.
Okay, my thing is that the Chief Secretary has a lot more to answer for than that gentleman. The gentleman seems not to be credible in some instances, but if you look at the whole event of these issues, ask yourself, did the police then have, because I listen to everybody talk about the police, did the police then have sufficient evidence that we don't know about or information to go and put down a raid on the Chief Secretary's residence and get certain information? You see, we demonize the police service because we don't know what happened in the background.
Yes.
Right? We don't know. We look at the surface. And there's a lot, take it from me, Sean, there's a lot more going on in this thing, and the Chief Secretary is running scared. And I hope that in the end, Trinidad and Tobago gets what it deserves, which is the truth out of this whole situation. Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Well, what I was going to say is, I don't know, I think Mr. Akil Abdullah has a lot to answer for as well. Because even if he was coerced, at the end of the day, he made definitive statements, and if he knew that they weren't true, because it's not as though he's in a rum shop just talking to a partner, saying what he thinks. You know, this is the chief secretary who is a political opponent to the prime minister, or at least has positioned himself to be that way. He's going to take what you say seriously. It's not going to be a joke. So try to be somewhat fair to the chief secretary. So you have to be, I mean, he had a responsibility to be responsible with his own speech. And we don't know what the truth is, right? We just know that we have competing claims now on the veracity of the testimony that was recorded. And to unravel it, I think, is going to be very difficult, right? It could be that both the chief secretary and Mr. Abdullah in this scenario, one might not exonerate the other. They both might look bad, but we don't know. We don't know. So at some point, as I said, I myself have to try to not speculate too much and be responsible and caution viewers, you know, just go with what you know and demand more information. Don't condemn without information. We have a caller from Tobago. Good morning.
Testimony that was recorded. And to unravel it, I think is going to be very difficult.
Hello, morning caller.
It would be that both the chief secretary and Mr.
Caller, you're on the air.
One might not exonerate. I'm here.
Yes, don't listen to the TV caller, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning.
Morning.
I'm not sure if the hosts are aware, but at the chief secretary's residence, there is an official office. So when he said they met at the residence, it was not like going to his home.
Right.
There's an official office at the residence. And he occupies that office. Many important meetings are held there. Secondly, I'm not sure if you all were privy to a program on another media last night, but the so-called whistleblower has retracted all the statements he made to the police in a sworn affidavit. The retraction is in a sworn affidavit. He has retracted all. As a matter of fact, he is no longer a witness.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something you can look into also.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for that. I did say earlier, and I have to be careful because I don't want to slander the gentleman, but I feel he himself, now that he's retracted his testimony and he's gone on to say that what he's told Farley was not true, he's very unreliable, and that might be where the focus is supposed to be. But we have another caller, our next caller from Claxton Bay. Good morning, caller.
Morning, Sean.
Morning, sir.
Good morning,
Long time.
Mr.
Yes. Caller, I heard a beep. I think your phone might have hung up. You may have accidentally.
Hello?
You're there? Okay. Yes, we have you. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, on politics. The young people need change. They want change. They want everything. But you ask them to go out and vote, they're not going to vote for change. We need the young people. We are age people, we senior citizens. Go out and all make a change. You know, you sitting at home, but we ain't getting this, we're not getting that. What are we going to vote for? But go out and make a change. Put all the young people in position. But I didn't see that happen. Well, I went to vote. I didn't see that happen. You have the UCB school Claxton Day. You have the post office opposite. You have the health center opposite, the main road. Now, they have big parking facilities inside the school.
Right.
You know, they not allow people to go in with their vehicle to park inside the school to vote. You have to park at the outside. Now, we was by the gate because I is kind of a little thing my daughter carry me. Can't walk too good. So the guy telling me, you have a stick or something that prove that you can't. I said, no, but I kind of have to walk a little. Then the traffic so back up in the back of us, we couldn't even reverse back out. Then he let us go inside. What sense do you have a big parking facilities inside? Accommodate the voting for people. You know, it was kind of chaos. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Well, this is for the local election, right?
Let's not fair.
But caller, this was for the local government election, correct?
Yeah, local.
Yeah. Okay, I'll respond off it. The thing is, I don't know if whoever's in charge for a general, that might be more relevant. You might not want the public parking inside, there might not be enough space. I don't know exactly how big it is, right? I don't know what necessarily the concerns are for security. For the local, one could make the argument that the numbers were smaller, so it might have been better to do so. I don't know, but it does seem to not make sense when you're trying to get people come to vote, but you have to, scrunch for a parking space somewhere. That could be a soft barrier, an unintentional barrier, but a soft barrier from voting. So, yeah, with regards to young people in politics, here's the catch-22. Young people aren't involved in politics, so we end up not seeing much change. We don't have that desire from younger people who have that energy and different perspective to push for change. You don't always want all of the changes that young people want, right? But it's a good way to hold the system to account, to challenge the system. It's a good way to challenge the thoughts that, hey, everything is fine. No, everything is not always fine. We don't have that here. A lot of young people don't bother to follow local politics. Maybe it's because the nature of the politics is not about issues. So because parties don't campaign on issues per se, yes, there were some issues, but they don't have ideologies for young people to identify with and to be passionate about, because young people will take up causes, not necessarily political parties, right? Environment and racial segregation or racism or LGBTQ issues or poverty. They'll take up causes. We don't necessarily, our politics is not necessarily rooted in those. We have a caller from Arima. Good morning, caller. Morning.
Teach me 3 things about the truth. It is offend, it will set you free, and it can't change. Now, to me, there's no politician who wouldn't use taxpayers' money to influence their agenda.
Yeah.
But to lie now, to make up a story, to lie, to sidetrack everything, that's not a big man. I don't, and you see, for me, we got to look at the bigger picture. What does autonomy really mean? Because you can't want to take taxpayers' money and spend it as you see fit. And that is really a crime that all politicians are guilty of.
Yes.
Especially in this time.
Yes.
Because the Prime Minister now apologizing and telling us that our roads were not a priority. When during the COVID he said that he believed the airport in Tobago is a priority. And now we will end up paying more money for the same services that we're supposed to get. I have one question to ask though, with property tax. Are the corporations going to get the same money that they've been allocated from the government? And our taxes would increase their revenue, or is it that our taxes are going to replace what they get from the government? I would like that answered, please. Thank you.
Okay, caller. So the allocations are not supposed to be replaced by property tax, right? So the Minister of Finance, he gave the example of the Puno-Piako Corporation who wanted an allocation of 100 million, and the government never gave them the 100 million allocation. Of course, the claim is that they couldn't. So what he said was, though, I think it was either 40 million or 60 million was the highest allocation that Puno-Piako could get. I think it was 40. Either way, the point is property tax, in theory, he claimed, and I don't know if he did the math on this or if he's just making an assumption, but he claimed that property tax will make up the difference. Actually, I assume the way how we presented it, they did math it out based on the population, based on the $1 to $2 a day and the economic brackets, doing ratios. I don't know if they actually counted everybody individually with regards to what actually will happen, but just like doing rough calculations. the shortfall in what Tunapuna Piako wanted would have been made up by property tax. Now, the question is, yes, that's the intention. That's the stated intention. Stated intention by politicians are not ironclad contracts, right? And to be fair, for good reason. Circumstances change, emergencies come up, things happen. COVID-19 happened, right? However, the cynics will point out, and rightfully so in this case, that the intentions don't always come to pass. And it could be that there will be years, maybe not every year, but there will be years where all the corporations might get, or the significant amount of the money the corporations would have is property tax. Now, I assume when you said you can't spend public money as you see fit, you meant with regards to advancing personal agendas or the agendas of your political party. That's what I assume you meant. To be fair to the Chief Secretary, it's not as though he did something so much more heinous than all the politicians that came before him. You're right. There is reasonable suspicion that that is a widespread practice. The difference between him and most everybody else is that he got caught with a recording of him specifically speaking about it in a manner that was very damning. So it's unfortunate, one could say it's unlucky for him, but there comes a point where it goes so far, it goes too far, and we can't just ignore it. You see, we technically ignore the other situations because we don't have the evidence, right? The ignoring part comes when we don't actively try to rectify the fact that we don't have evidence, whether to clear or to convict. But with the Chief Secretary, the evidence is there out in the public. And at some point, you go past the point of no return. You go past the point where you could ignore it and everything will be fine. No, if you ignore it at that instance, at that point, how far it reached, that and all might undermine faith in our institutions. To say, well, look, the recording is public and nothing is going to be done. Well, then it's a free-for-all. So it could have been a different politician. It could have been a PNM politician in Trinidad, in central government, or in parliament. It could have been an opposition member. The response would have to be the same because the evidence takes it too far. Now, the situation might not be that straightforward. It might be more complex and nuanced, but the investigation, we need it to happen one way or the other. However, the results land. We have a caller from Chaguanas. Last caller for the morning. Good morning, caller.
Good day. So, what politicians could spend money on is what is approved in the budget. Right?
Yes.
Nothing else. And we have numerous examples of this in Tobago where money is spent on matters which was obviously not approved. To give you, I called another example before, and that is the problem. That the politicians are spending money on things that not are approved. Any questions, gentlemen?
No, I don't have any questions. I don't disagree with that. I would say that's probably what happened.
Well, replying to the question the fellow asked.
Yes. His question was, when he was speaking about expenditure, I don't think he was disagreeing with that position.
No, he was questioning it because I think like me, he's seeing things happening that don't look like it was approved. So I was just explaining the philosophy, the policy.
Yes. And, caller, that goes back to what you always say about the annual administrative reports. All of these approvals need to be documented somewhere so that they could be held to account.
That's what the paper trail is about.
Yes. I think a lot of people kind of underestimate paper trail because it's not as interesting, it's not as fun, there's no bacchanal behind it.
Of our government regulation.
All right, caller.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's actually an interesting point. The professor always brings up annual administrative reports. He brings up the fact that our Prime Minister, yes, he is our Prime Minister, took the then government, the People's Partnership Coalition government, to task for not publishing annual investigation reports, only to turn around and do the same thing. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier. You do a thing. Don't think that somebody else can't see that and do the same thing. What really grinds my gears, and it's not necessarily unique to TNT, but at the end of the day, it doesn't excuse the behavior. Just because other people doing nonsense don't mean we have carte blanche to do similar type of nonsense. We watch one side do something, decry it, condemn it, say it's the worst thing ever, and then when it comes up that maybe your side then did the same thing, all of a sudden, you know, shh, don't say about that, can't talk bad about the party. One would think that if accusations are out there, you would want to clear it. You would want to discuss it. You would want to clear your name. I mean, it's a cliche that's not always true, but don't they always say, when you are innocent, you want to defend yourself in no uncertain terms. You want to speak out the truth. So isn't silence, as we've seen in many cases before, deafening? You do something bad, the other side, when they get into power, not an if, it's a when. They will do it back. They will take advantage of it back. Even after taking you to task for it. And we, the people, accept this hypocrisy. So really, truly, whose fault is it? I always say, at the end of the day, don't just blame the politicians. They take their lead from the public. They do what they can get away with the public. They speak on the issues based on what feedback they get from the public. Their tone and manner of speech is in part to better communicate with the vocal minority or majority of the public. So if we want more responsible, more professional, better proficient, skilled, calmer, even-keeled, dignified politicians, some of the people who are the most egregious in their behavior, if more was expected of them by the public, maybe they would rise up to those expectations. But since we expect so little, why are we surprised that eventually, whether they mean well or not, they all slowly sink down? Not all, to be fair, not all. We wait for the day when the few are given more precedence than the lowest common denominator in the political sphere. Folks, we end the show with that. If you want to make it a good day, you need to have higher expectations for your leaders. Let me just, bastardize my co-host's phrase and tack on that part. You want to make it a good day? You got to put some effort into it. I wonder how much effort is it really to have higher expectations for your leaders? Anyway, we will see you tomorrow morning, folks. Thank you to all the callers. My guest, Ashraf Ali. Bye-bye.
WESN